Ivo Boscarol built airplanes in a country where flying them was a crime, so he took off only after the other pilots had locked the hangar and gone home. Half a century later, his company certified the first electric airplane in history, and that airplane was still illegal to build in the United States. Not behind, not slower. Illegal by federal rule until 3 weeks ago. Long before that rule died, the company that owns Cessna had already written him a check for $235 million. If you have ever kept something running that the rulebook said you had no business running, put it in the comments. This is what Sky Ranch covers. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. 1975. A military airfield in western Yugoslavia, and the sun is almost down. Boscarol is not a pilot by trade. He is an economist who works in photography and printing. His father Augusto was a machine engineer who spent years as a test pilot for an Italian manufacturer. The pull toward aircraft is inherited. The permission is not. He was born in 1956 in Postojna, about an hour's drive from where the company sits today. He never left the valley. Every part of what follows happens inside about 30 miles of where he started. In Yugoslavia, in the mid-70s, microlight flying has no legal category. There is no license to apply for, and no office that would issue one. A man who builds a light aircraft in his own workshop is not breaking one specific rule. He is operating inside a space the state has decided should stay empty. The airfield belongs to the military. So Boscarol flies in the last hour of daylight after the sanctioned pilots have gone home. Think about what that routine actually requires of a person. Not one bold afternoon. Years of showing up to a field where you are not welcome. Waiting out everyone with a legitimate reason to be there. Getting 1 hour of light before you put it away again. Most people quit that at week 3. He built a company out of it. People in the area watch these machines come out at dusk and give them a name. Bats. Boscarol takes the Latin word for bat, Pipistrellus, and puts it on the company. That choice tells you more about him than any interview ever has. He did not pick a name that covered his tracks. He picked the nickname his neighbors gave him for the thing he was not supposed to be doing. He does not build alone. In the mid-80s, he is building flex-wing trikes with a partner named Bojan Sajovic. There is no certification authority to answer to, because no authority has decided these machines are its problem yet. By 1989, that work turns into a production aircraft called the Basic. 32 of them leave the workshop before the end of 1992. Some go to Italy, the first private light aircraft ever exported out of Yugoslavia. The country is tearing itself apart while this happens. Yugoslavia is dissolving into war. And in Idovština, a small town near the Italian border, a printing man is quietly running an aircraft factory. 1989 is worth sitting on for a second because of what is happening on the other side of the Atlantic in the same window. American light aircraft production peaked in 1978 at roughly 18,000 units in a single year. By 1994, that number had fallen to 928. Cessna suspended piston aircraft production entirely in 1986 and did not restart the 172 line until 1997. So while Boscarol is scaling up from nothing in a country that is coming apart, the largest light aircraft industry on Earth is shutting its piston lines down. Hold that image, because it explains why what happens next lands the way it does. Now jump forward to 2011. NASA puts up the largest prize in the history of aviation. The task sounds simple and is close to impossible. Fly 200 miles in under 2 hours on less than 1 gallon of fuel equivalent per person on board. 14 teams register. 3 make it to the starting line. The competition is held at Santa Rosa, California. American ground, American agency, American money. 11 of the 14 entries never get airborne under the rules. That detail matters more than the winner does, because it tells you the target was set at the edge of what anybody could physically do. This was also not Boscarol's first appearance in a NASA competition. His aircraft had already won the Personal Air Vehicle Challenges in 2007 and again in 2008. By 2011, the agency had been handing this Slovenian workshop prize money for 4 years. On September 26, 2011, a machine called the Taurus G4 flies the course. It looks like two gliders bolted together because that is close to what it is. Two fuselages, 4 seats, one propeller mounted on the wing between them. It finishes at 403.5 passenger miles per gallon equivalent, holding an average of 107 mph. A normal general aviation aircraft manages around 60 passenger miles per gallon. Penn State, whose engineer led the team, put it another way. The airplane was twice as efficient as a Prius and twice as fast. On October 3rd, NASA hands over $135 million at the Ames Research Center. Then Boscarol does something that still surprises me. He offers part of the prize money back to help fund a future challenge aimed at a supersonic electric aircraft. He had just taken the biggest purse in the industry, and his first instinct was to put it back on the table. Boscarol had beaten the American field on American soil, with an American agency signing the check. What almost nobody noticed is that the aircraft which would really embarrass Wichita had not been built yet. And when it was, another government would decide it should not exist. May 18, 2020. An electric motor called the E811, developed with the Slovenian firms MRAX and MSISO, becomes the first certified electric aircraft motor in history. 3 weeks later, on June 10th, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency issues type certificate ESA.A.573 to an airplane called the Velis Electro. That is the first fully electric aircraft anywhere on Earth to hold a type certificate. Not a prototype. A certified, buildable, sellable airplane. The whole process took under 3 years, and the agency credited the speed to how closely it worked with the manufacturer. The machine itself is straightforward once you look at it. A 57.6 kilowatt liquid-cooled motor, which is a motor with coolant running through it, the way a car engine has coolant. A 345-volt system. 2 battery packs, one in the nose and one behind the cabin, positioned that way so the weight balances around the center of gravity. An electric motor has a handful of moving parts. A piston engine has hundreds. Fewer moving parts means fewer things that wear and fewer things that fail on a Tuesday afternoon with a student on board. There is also the noise, which is the thing flight schools near housing care about more than anything on the spec sheet. The Velis Electro puts out around 60 decibels. That is roughly 70% quieter than the piston trainer it replaces in the pattern. Some European fields let it fly hours, or 172 is not allowed to. Then there is the number that stops people. Energy cost per flight hour, €1.08. Florida Tech flew one for 22 minutes, and the electricity came to $1.003. Now, the honest version. Depreciation runs about €37 an hour, and that is the real bill. The airplane is expensive to buy and almost free to run. The cost moved from the fuel pump to the purchase order. So where were the Americans? Buy Aerospace out of Colorado opened its FAA certification process in 2018 on a 2-seat electric trainer called the E-Flyer 2. By June of this year, that aircraft still had not flown. Beta Technologies in Vermont is the furthest along of anyone and is aiming at certification in the back half of 2027. 18 to 26. 8 years, no first flight. It is very easy to look at that and conclude American engineering had simply gone soft. That conclusion is wrong, and the reason is buried in a rule almost nobody outside the industry has read. Until July 24th of this year, the American light sport aircraft category carried a requirement written into the regulation itself. The aircraft had to have a single reciprocating engine. Reciprocating means pistons. Pistons going up and down. An electric motor does not reciprocate, it spins. So an American electric trainer in that category was not slow to arrive. Under the rule as written, there was no lawful way to build one. The Velis Electro itself could only fly in the United States as an experimental aircraft until the FAA granted an exemption in March of 2024. Until that day, no flight school could legally train in one. Boscarol's first airplanes were outlawed by a state that did not want private citizens in the sky. His electric airplane was outlawed by a paragraph that could not picture an engine without pistons. One ban was political, the other was clerical. Both grounded the same machine. That is the part that I keep coming back to. Which airplanes exist is not decided in a wind tunnel. It is decided by whether a category exists that they are allowed to fit into. Does that change who you blame here? The engineers or the paragraph? I want to hear it. Before this goes further, the fair complaint about the Velis Electro deserves saying out loud. It flies for about 50 minutes, plus reserves, cruises at 90 knots, and carries 172 kilograms of people and gear. It cannot do what a Cessna 172 does. Schools that buy one fly the early lessons in it and put the cross-country work in a piston aircraft. Anybody selling you this airplane as a 172 replacement is selling you something. But the rule blocking it had a date on it. It was never going to stand forever. And 4 years before it fell, Textron was already writing a check. March 17, 2022. Textron announces it is buying Pipistrel. The deal closes in April at roughly $235 million in cash. The SEC filing puts the total at $239 million once assumed debt is counted. Textron owns Cessna. It owns Beechcraft, Hawker, and Bell. This is the corporate parent of the company that stopped building piston singles in 1986, buying the company that certified the first electric aircraft on the planet. The detail that makes it land is where they put the new division. Textron eAviation is headquartered in Wichita, Kansas, Cessna's hometown. The engineering and the factories stayed in Slovenia and Italy. Look at the timing, because the timing is the whole story. Textron bought the capability in 2022. The rule that made an American electric trainer impossible did not die until July of 2026. They paid $235 million for a capability the law would not let them sell for another 4 years. Boscarol kept roughly 10% for 2 years and the title of Chairman Emeritus. He negotiated that the headquarters stay in Idovština. Reporting out of the region says he gave 25 million euros of the proceeds to his hometown toward a new hospital. There are 2 honest readings of that April, and I do not think you have to choose. One is that the giant found the only outfit doing the thing it could not do and absorbed it. The other is that a man who once waited for a military airfield to empty out sold on terms he set himself. He kept the factory in his own valley and handed a large part of the money to the people he grew up with. July 24, 2026. Mosaic Phase 2 takes effect. The new light sport rules drop the old weight ceiling for a stall speed test and allow up to 4 seats. They also permit electric and turbine power plants for the first time in more than 20 years. The paragraph that grounded the electric trainer is gone. 4 days before it took effect, at Oshkosh, Textron rolled out a new 2-seat trainer built for the new rule. They did not badge it Cessna. The airplane went out under the Pipistrel name. It is called the Voyager, entering service in 2027 at a base price of €240,000, or about $275,000. In the same briefing, Textron's Vice President of Piston Sales, Chris Crow, put the 2026 base price of a Cessna 172 at $580,000. Crow said on the record that they went with Pipistrel because they did not want to wait, and Pipistrel could reach the market faster than the Cessna brand could. That is an American executive standing in Wisconsin, explaining that his Slovenian subsidiary out runs his American icon. He went further. He said the company now has to rethink the balance between how many 172s it builds and how many Voyagers it sells. Epic Flight Academy, which runs 12 locations in the United States, mostly on Skyhawks, has already committed to as many as 50 of them. And now, the ending nobody at that press conference framed the way it deserves. The Voyager is not electric. It runs a Rotax 912 ULS, a 4-cylinder piston engine. Read that against everything that came before. The company that certified the world's first electric airplane finally got a rule change that allowed electric aircraft into American flight training. And the first machine it pushed through that opening burns gasoline. Because that is what flight schools will actually buy at $275,000 a copy. 51 years after a printing man waited for a Yugoslav airfield to clear, his company is the one Wichita sends to market first. He was banned twice and bought once, and he is still the fastest thing in the building. The lesson underneath this is not really about airplanes. Somebody wrote reciprocating into a regulation, and that single word decided which aircraft existed in the largest aviation market on Earth for 2 decades. Every industry has a paragraph like that in it somewhere, and almost nobody reads it until something they wanted turns out to be illegal. So, which is it? Did Cessna absorb its rival, or did the rival quietly take over Cessna's trainer line from the inside? The next time a manufacturer tells you a technology is not ready, check whether the technology failed or whether somebody forgot to write it into the rulebook. That question answers more than you would expect. That is the kind of thing Sky Ranch digs into. Subscribe and the next one comes to you.